the biblical story on various aspects of the conflict, the significance of the biblical narrative, and the historical, theological, and political implications that continue to shape the region today. 1. The promise to Abraham. The foundation of the conflict. Abraham's covenant with God. The story begins with God's call to Abraham, originally named Abram, in the book of Genesis. In Genesis 12, 1-3, God promises to make Abraham the father of a great nation and gives him the land of Canaan as an everlasting possession for his descendants. This promise is seen as the foundation of the Jewish connection to the land of Israel. Jews view this covenant as a divine guarantee, and for them, the land of Israel is not just a geographic area, but a sacred space tied to God's eternal promises. Theologically significant. The concept of God making a promise to a specific people and a specific land is foundational in Jewish thought. The land of Israel is considered an integral part of God's covenant with the Jewish people. And throughout Jewish history, the hope of returning to this land has remained a central spiritual and political theme. Even in times of exile, Jews have maintained their deep connection to this land, believing that God will one day restore them to it. The land of Canaan and the birth of a nation. In Genesis 17:19, God reiterates that Abraham's son Isaac will be the heir to the promise. This promise not only includes the land of Canaan, but it also involves the creation of a great nation from Isaac's descendants. This nation is later referred to as Israel. The connection between the Jewish people and the land of Israel is thus theological in nature, and many Jews see it as a divine right, not merely a political or territorial claim. The entire concept of the Jewish return to the land is rooted in this ancient covenant, which Jews believe has not been revoked, despite centuries of exile. The modern implications. For modern Jews, particularly after the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, the land's significance has remained both spiritual and political. The idea that Israel is a divinely promised land helps explain the sense of urgency and deep emotional connection that many Jews feel toward it, as well as the belief that the establishment of Israel is a fulfillment of biblical prophecy. 2. The birth of Ishmael, a complicated family dynamics. Sarah's barren years and the birth of Ishmael. Before Isaac was born, Sarah, Abraham's wife, was barren. In the ancient world, infertility was seen as a profound source of shame, and Sarah was deeply distressed by her inability to have children. As a result, Sarah gave her maidservant Hagar to Abraham, suggesting that he have a child with her to fulfill God's promise of descendants. Genesis 16:1-4. Hagar conceived and gave birth to Ishmael, the firstborn son of Abraham. Theological and historical importance. Ishmael's birth, though conceived out of a lack of faith in God's timing, is significant in both the biblical and Islamic traditions. For Jews, Ishmael is not considered the legitimate heir to Abraham's promise, as the covenant is specifically made with Isaac. However, the descendants of Ishmael are believed to be blessed by God and are seen as the ancestors of the Arab peoples, including the Palestinians. God's promise to Ishmael. While the Bible emphasizes that God's covenant is through Isaac, God promises Hagar that Ishmael will also become the father of a great nation. Genesis 17:20. This promise is crucial in understanding the Arab people's connection to the land of Canaan and their claim to the region. In Islam, Ishmael is viewed as a prophet and the father of many nations, and the Arabs trace their lineage back to him. This common ancestry between Jews and Arabs contributes to the tension over the land, as both groups lay claim to it based on their shared heritage. The modern significance. For Muslims, particularly Palestinians, the connection to the land of Israel and Palestine is also rooted in the legacy of Ishmael. Islam holds that both Abraham and his sons are central figures in its own tradition, with Ishmael's descendants considered to be the rightful heirs to the land. This religious and cultural connection to the land has played a significant role in shaping Palestinian identity and their claims to the land, especially in light of the displacement they experienced with the creation of the State of Israel in 1948. The rivalry between Isaac and Ishmael, a source of division, conflict and separation. The rivalry between Isaac and Ishmael is portrayed in Genesis 21:9-10, where Sarah sees Ishmael mocking Isaac. Sarah's jealousy leads her to demand that Abraham send Hagar and Ishmael away. God reassures Abraham, telling him not to be distressed, for Ishmael will also be made into a great nation. However, the tension between Isaac's and Ishmael's families results in their separation. Abraham reluctantly obeys God's command and sends Hagar and Ishmael into the wilderness. Genesis 21:14. Symbolic and political ramifications. The biblical separation of Isaac and Ishmael is often seen as the source of the division between the Jewish and Arab peoples. Though both groups are said to be blessed by God, their destinies are marked by division. The land of Israel, promised to the descendants of Isaac, becomes the focal point of this division. The story of Isaac and Ishmael's rivalry can be viewed as a precursor to the deep political and territorial divisions that would characterize the modern Israel-Palestine conflict. Interpretation of rivalry. The rivalry between Isaac and Ishmael has been interpreted in many ways, especially in light of the Israel-Palestine conflict. For many Jews, the story highlights the legitimacy of their claim to the land of Israel, as it was through Isaac that God's covenant was passed down. For Palestinians, particularly Muslims, the story can be seen as reflecting the long history of displacement and loss, as the descendants of Ishmael have struggled to reclaim their ancestral land, which they view as rightfully theirs. The tension today. The rivalry between Isaac and Ishmael is reflected in the contemporary tensions between Israelis and Palestinians. Both peoples claim the same land as their inheritance, and this shared ancestry has made the conflict more complex, as it is not just about political control of territory, but also about competing religious and cultural identities. And 4. The covenant with Isaac, the Jewish claim to the land. God's promise to Isaac and his descendants. Isaac becomes the legitimate heir to God's covenant with Abraham. In Genesis 17:19, God promises that Isaac will be the father of the Jewish people, and in Genesis 28:13-15, God reaffirms the promise of the land of Canaan to Isaac's descendants. The 12 tribes of Israel, descended from Isaac's son Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, come to represent the Jewish nation. The covenant is renewed through Jacob, whose descendants form the foundation of the Jewish people. Significance of the land to Jews. For Jews, the land of Israel is not simply a geographical region, but a sacred trust that is part of God's eternal covenant with his people. The land of Canaan, Israel, is viewed as an inheritance that can never be forfeited, even though the Jewish people were exiled from it for nearly 2,000 years. This belief forms the theological basis for modern Jewish claims to the land, and it is central to the idea of a Jewish return to the land after centuries of dispersion. Theological and political ramifications. The biblical promise to Isaac and his descendants remains a key theological justification for the establishment of the State of Israel. For many Jews, the modern State of Israel is a fulfillment of God's ancient promise to Abraham. The establishment of Israel in 1948, following the horrors of the Holocaust, was seen by many Jews as the beginning of the fulfillment of divine prophecy and the restoration of the Jewish people to their homeland. 5. Modern implications. A conflict of two legacies. Jewish and Palestinian claims to the land. In the modern political context, the Israel-Palestine conflict is primarily about territorial control and national identity. Both Jews and Palestinians claim the land of Israel, Palestine, as their rightful home. Jews, following the Abrahamic covenant through Isaac, view the land of Israel as their God-given inheritance, and the modern state of Israel is seen as the fulfillment of that promise. For Palestinians, particularly Muslims, the land holds deep historical and religious significance. Their connection to the land is rooted in their belief that they are the descendants of Ishmael. And for many Palestinians, the displacement of their people with the creation of Israel in 1948 is seen as an injustice. Competing narratives and the struggle for identity. The religious and historical narratives surrounding the promises made to Abraham have become central to the identities of both Israelis and Palestinians. The Israeli national narrative is steeped in the belief that the Jewish people have a divine right to the land, rooted in the biblical covenant. The Palestinian narrative, meanwhile, emphasizes the continuous presence of Palestinians in the region for centuries, their displacement during the creation of Israel, and their own claims to the land based on their descent from Ishmael. The modern conflict is shaped by these competing narratives, each claiming legitimacy through its connection to Abraham's promise. Six. Conclusion. A path to understanding and peace. The power of shared heritage. The story of Abraham and his sons, Isaac and Ishmael, provides a theological backdrop to the modern Israel-Palestine conflict. The rivalry between the two brothers, their descendants, and the promises made by God to each have become symbolic of the divisions that exist today. However, the shared heritage of both Jews and Arabs offers a potential path to understanding and reconciliation. By acknowledging the shared Abrahamic roots of the conflict, both sides may be able to find common ground. Hope for reconciliation. The Israel-Palestine conflict, deeply entrenched in religious, cultural, and political identities, cannot be easily resolved. However, by recognizing the common heritage that both Jews and Arabs share through Abraham, there is a possibility for greater empathy and dialogue. The religious narratives that divide can also be used to build bridges, with both sides seeing themselves as part of the same Abrahamic family. While the path to peace remains uncertain, understanding the deep roots of the conflict can serve as a first step toward reconciliation. Final reflection. The story of Abraham is not just a religious tale. It is a lens through which the modern struggle for land and identity can be understood. The competing claims to the land of Israel-Palestine are not only political, but are deeply intertwined with